Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Fire Force Season 2, Episode 13. So, right out of the gate, we learned quite a bit about Burns and how, in the past, he served as a moderator between the public and private phases of the church. And while getting this even more expanded knowledge, of Joker's backstory and his connection to Burns does also flesh out their dynamic in the present, it also does show us just how much of a gray area Burns operates under in a system that basically believes in nothing but absolutes. Because we also get more insight into just how much Amaterasu itself is part of the current problem, and how it's responsible for basically releasing infernals onto the general populace, and how in some ways you could say from what we understand, like the Amaterasu itself is kind of responsible for kind of creating the infernal problem here in the Tokyo Empire, but unfortunately which also fits into what we know though about the girl who was sacrificed to fuel the power plant. But the thing is, because it serves as Tokyo's only power source, the church and government and basically Hajime can't afford to have their complicity leaked, which in itself is definitely emblematic of a lot of governments throughout the world operate. But once again, going back to Burns, it is interesting how he has continued to use those connections and influence in a way where his public face is that as someone loyal to the government, but privately he's been digging through dirt himself, ironically enough, using those exact same resources. And that also goes back to that dynamic I mentioned between Joker and Burns, which is the relationship between Joker and Burns is very yin and yang in the sense where they both operate with the intent to uncover the truth, with one operating in the light while the other operates in the shadows. Which is really cool, honestly. It's a very cool like split dynamic between the two of them. And of course, it's also through this where we pretty much get the $1,000,000 reveal that Yona, the member of the White-Clad with the ability to transform into people, is basically the architect behind everything is more or less behind everything that makes up the structure of the Tokyo Empire in itself. And the fact that he's even alive this long pretty much proves what Burns was talking about, how he's not human. He's essentially an interdimensional being that crossed over from the world of Adola. And and the fact that he was even able to maintain the facade for so long, that not even the real Raffles family and descendants were able to fully understand what had happened, proves how dangerous the situation in itself has become. Like because of Yona's actions in killing the real Raffles and taking his place, it's created a situation where the White-Clad are even closer than they ever have been before to like. It's definitely looking. Everything is pushing in the direction of basically of the White-Clad like opening up getting even closer to opening up like a gateway or a portal that'll allow the evangelists to cross over into this world. And honestly, there's a lot about revisiting this material in the anime that really puts more perspective on the crazy stuff that's going on in the manga right now. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but let's just say we're as of right now, as to where we are in the anime right now, we're actually much closer than you think. We're the White-Clad are much closer than you think in order to opening that portal to get for the evangelists to cross over into this world. And yeah, it's pretty damn yeah. And when that finally happens, it's like all hell is gonna break loose at that point. Also, on a bit of a side note, I love how Burns being able to cover up everything that happened in the temple is only made possible because based on pure chance and luck that the overall damage that the Joker and Benimaru had done was kept to a minimum. Because it's one of those things where obviously there's a bit of comedy in that conversation with him needing to cover things up, but it shows that for as much influence as he has, even he has limitations by how much he can distort the truth. And that in itself is ironic, that the very power used deceive the people is also being used to uncover the truth about the lies they've been told. Um, with that being said, we pretty much get set for the next phase of the plan in this episode, which is to uncover whatever secrets that the Prince Industries, the Prince Hyjima Industries is keeping, which just based on the reveal of them studying and experimenting on the boy Rekka infected already reveals a lot about what that company is hiding. But the fact that whatever happens from here is going to be done without Burns' protection not only adds a new layer of tension, but also illustrates how much more meticulous and precise this and how much precise this operation is going to need to be, considering the vast influence over the Tokyo Empire that the Prince Hajime actually has. But it's just too bad that this whole operation is going to be involving the Eighth, which, don't get me wrong, they are capable, but neither do they present the pinnacle of subtlety either. And right now, the name of the game is information, and how much Licht and just the Eighth in general can glean from them. But at the same time, it looks like Prince Hajime is already forcing the Eighth's hand as well. Like they're planning, like the boss of Hajime said it himself. He's planning to kill Licht once. He's planning to kill Licht once he pretty much has Shinra in his plan, which just based off the preview of next episode, going into the next episode, it seems like the Eighth are gonna have to come up with some kind of counter strategy to this. But like it's basically looking like it's gonna be, from this point on, it's looking like it's gonna be all out war between basically Hajime and the Eighth at this point, which is definitely going to put them in the not so great position of being. I think we can guess that probably once this whole thing with Hajime ends, it's going to put them in a very bad position with the public, in the public face. And yeah, they're probably going to be outlaws at that point. Of course, speaking about the Eighth, we also get the reveal that Lisa has joined as an engineer working alongside Vulcan. And while it is a little bit of an abrupt reveal, it's just one of those moments that's like a lot of what we've been touching on in these episodes so far has just been absolute darkness like darkness and just emphasizing just the pure weight of just how deep the corruption in the Tokyo Empire goes. But this was just a nice bit of light in that. Just getting Lisa back was a nice bit of light in those dark times that we're facing. And even though we also see that she hasn't completely recovered from her trauma, you can already see the positive influence that being part of the Eighth is giving her just from her brief interactions with them. But yeah, and once again, I have to give credit where credit is due, because between this week and last week's episode, David Production has really been stretching their muscles visually and really taking advantage of the material they're being given as much as possible. I mean, as I pointed out last week's episode, alone, on top of the fact that they made the fights much more gruesome compared to the manga, they also took a single panel and made it into a demented carnival ride, whereas this week it was any moment involving the joke, like the Adola world. They really, this week they focused on like putting as much detail as they could into the Adola world, which you could say are moments that the manga arguably did still better, but at like visually representing the world. But you can still tell the studio really wanted to emphasize as much detail as they possibly could in those scenes as they could. And I really like how this shows that David Productions isn't as restrained as they were before. Like they are truly going all out where it counts. I think the only thing they didn't do as good for me as the manga, in my opinion, was the moment where basically Yona basically transforming from basically Raffles the First into himself again. Like when we see that when we see Yona's disguise lift and him change back to himself. In the manga, his face kind of morphed back into his own, but in the anime, it just kind of crumbles away. And I thought the former was much creepier, honestly, but it is what it is. But yeah, but as a whole, I'd say that visually that this was again another great episode, honestly. Um, but yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Crunchyroll. That and that, signing off. Later, guys.